Here today, the point which we will be discussing is data manipulation language. We have already seen that in SQL we have two types of languages broadly classified as DDL, that is data definition language, and DML, that is data manipulation language. We have already seen in much more detail about DDL in the previous lecture. Today we will study about DML. As the name suggests, manipulation means to make changes. Okay, so here when we talk about or what the point which we are discussing is related to a database. Yes, so when we need to change some things in our database, okay, when we need to modify some records, so in that case we make use of DML statements. Fine. So now we will see what is DML, what are the instructions that can be performed over the database or over the records which are stored in a database. Okay. So DML, it is a language which enables users to access or manipulate data which is organized by the appropriate data model. We have already discussed about data model. Okay. We have different data models, right? Or we will be discussing it further also. We have also seen it in just rough context, and then in detail we will see it further also. So this DML, it is going to enable the users to modify the data, to make changes into the data using a specific data model. Okay, what instructions can be performed for manipulation over the data which is stored in a database? So there are certain four methods. The first is retrieval of information which is stored in the database. Retrieval means you are taking out some information from the database, you want to access some data from the database, so that is retrieval of the information. Then second will be if you want to insert some new data. Okay, like already some names are being stored but a new student enrolled into the classroom, so I want to enter that student into my database, so that particular operation will be performed using the insert statement. Then next will be deletion. If some student left the classroom, okay, for example, if some student is leaving the classroom and then no longer that student will be a part of that class, so ultimately what I will have to do, I will have to delete the data from that database, so I will be using the deletion query. The next will be the modification. Suppose like a student's email id we have collected. Okay, we have collected student's email id, and if we need to modify that email id, if student is now possessing some other mail id, so in that case we need to modify, we need to update that record, so in that case modification statement will be used. Okay, now basically we have two types of DML, that is procedural DMLs and declarative DML. Now what is the difference between procedural and declarative? Okay, so procedure, this particular type of DML, it is requiring a user to specify what data is needed and how to get that particular data from the database. Okay, what procedural DML tells us that what type of data you want to have access to from the database, and the mechanism, the method. Okay, the method through which you will be accessing that data from the database, what data and to how to get that data from the database. These two things will be handled when you are considering procedural DMLs. Then you have declarative DMLs. Declarative DMLs are also termed as non procedural DMLs. These declarative DMLs require a user to specify what data are needed, and here no consideration is done regarding how to get that data. Procedure may we have to specify that this procedure is to be applied to get this particular data from the database. In declarative, we are not specifying the procedure. What we need to specify is what data we want to access from the database. Okay. Declarative DMLs are usually easier to learn, and then they can be used as procedural DMLs. However, since a user does not have to specify how to get the data, the database system has to figure out an efficient means of accessing the data. A query, now what is a query? When we talk about like whatever four commands we are seeing, that when we want to modify a particular database, either we want to insert, we want to delete, we want to update, or we want to access some information. So that particular thing, this statement, if you consider, so this is nothing but a query. You are asking a question. Okay, so query, it is nothing but a statement where you are requesting the retrieval of the information. Okay, the portion of DML that involves information retrieval is called as a query language, as we have SQL, that is structured query language, and DML is nothing but the part of your SQL. So although technically incorrect, it is common practice to use the terms query language and DML synonymously. That is, either you can use DML or either you can use query language. Now we will study how this DML works under SQL. The previous slide which we studied was just basic DML, how it is working, and now we are studying DML with reference to your SQL. Okay, so SQL query language is non-procedural. Non-procedural, also declarative DML. Yes, just now we saw. So a query which is taken as input, the query takes input in the form of several tables. Okay, possibly only one table can also be considered over here, and it is always returning a single table. Why single table? Because you are inserting one table and then you are asking the information from that single table only. Here is an example of an SQL query, that is finding the names of all instructors in the history department. We have already seen this database prior in our prior lectures. Okay, so if we want to see how many teachers are present in the history department, okay, so what you need to give, you need to give the database name, and then you need to ask the query that I want instructor name from instructor table. Okay, select instructor name from where? From the instructor table. Okay, where here you need to specify history department. We are talking about the teachers which are present in history department. So you are giving a condition that where the instructors department will be history. So what answer you will get out of these queries? You will get the teachers from the instructor table which are available in the history department. Okay. The query specifies that those rows from the table instructor where the department name is history must be retrieved, must be accessed, must be visible, and the name attribute of these rows must be displayed. The result of executing this query is definitely a table with a single column which will be labeled as name, and there will be set of rows, multiple rows will be there, and a single column will be there, and column name will be referred to as name, each of which contains the name of an instructor whose department will be history. If the query is run on the given table, the previous query just now we saw that select instructor name from instructor where instructor department name will be equal to history. So if this query is run on the given table, the result will be consisting of two rows, one with the name and the other with the first name will be even Seth and the other with the name will be Calipari. Okay, these are nothing but the two teachers, two instructors which are present in the history department of the instructor table. Okay, the queries may involve information from more than one table. See, there is a possibility as you gave the name instructor, so you can similarly give multiple table names. You can if you see this, if you see this query na, so from instructor you can also write comma, then student table, suppose you are having a student table, then comma, then suppose you are having a department table. So multiple queries you can put there. See the example we have here. For instance, the following query finds the instructor ID and the department name of all the instructors associated with the department where the budget of that department will be more than $95,000. Okay. So what you need to do? You need to find the instructor ID and the department name of such persons, such instructors, wherever those instructors are present in the building, that the budget of that building will be greater than $95,000. So we will see how to write that query. Okay, the syntax we will be seeing. So you need to select what two parameters we are considering, the instructor ID and the department name. So you have select instructor ID and department